What's up? So here's a project that I just kind of wanted to show you guys a little bit of my process on doing multi-piece handles with alignment pins. This is just a pretty traditional standard gyudo. I think it's like 210 millimeter, fairly classical shape, low tip, not much belly there. So this is an octagonal handle that I'm doing multiple pieces with 2 alignment pins. The reason why I do alignment pins is because with multi-piece handles, the strength is a concern, especially when you start having these metal pieces in there. Just the bonding strength between metal and some material that's gonna shift over time and stuff like that. Even if you get your surface prep all good and stuff and like everything's tight, things move around and eventually it's gonna like fall apart. So the handle might not come off because if you like grind in notches into the tang and stuff like that, it might hold. But these pieces are gonna start letting go and you might get gaps and it might cause problems later on. And doing alignment pins is always going to be really helpful when you're shaping the handle and stuff like that. So what are the difficulties with doing a handle like this? Well, one is how the hell do you drill multiple pieces and have them all line up to be, all one piece and still come apart and come together again? So what I do is I will take like the bolster piece, I put that on the tang, get us flush, I get your spacers, put them on, and I super glue them. Just one at each corner and then keep them in one piece. So once it's super glued, I can take off the whole assembly, be really careful with it, put it in a vise and drill through. And make sure you get your like direction so the pins aren't going straight down the, well, relative to the block where it was drilled and shaped, they weren't in line or parallel with the block itself. So make sure that your pins are going in line with the handle of your profile. What else? So once you do that, I would drill your holes, drill them undersized and then ream them. Reaming them is very important to keep things together and keep things accurate. If you don't ream them, your pins will go together, but every time you put your pieces together again, they're not going to sit in the same exact place because drilled holes are more triangular in shape and they're not perfectly round. So, yeah. Then, once these are drilled together, I break the super glue between the first 2 pieces. Or actually, what am I doing? Go back a step. I take the big block, glue it to the whole assembly again, take it all off. Then I break the bond with the front bolster. And that way, the holes here were still in line, break the bond. Now this assembly is glued together and you can drill straight through using those previous holes that you had. So that's how I do it to get all the holes in line, which there might be a better way to do it. I'm not really sure. It's just something that I kind of figured out for myself. If I didn't have a spacer piece, I have no idea what I would do. So, how do you do the lengths for the pins? Because you can't really take, the holes are so small you can't take your caliper and shove them in there. So what I do, give me one second. Here's a full length pin stock, whatever. Just stick it in the hole. Actually, it might be easier to use a piece that's not so tight. Let me try a different piece. This one is pretty tight, which is nice for assembly, but difficult to take on and off. This one's a little bit more loose. So I put that in there. I just take a Sharpie and I mark where that ends. So I've got a Sharpie mark right there. Now I could just take the caliper and just kind of approximate where I've marked to. And so it's not going to be super exact. But I just measured every piece, measured the hole depth in the blind holes, and just added together, double check the fit. And if it fits, that's probably pretty good. So let's assemble this thing. Putting in, let's see, I usually put the front ones in. Front two. And I, of course, mark everything. Like, you don't want to lose track of which one's which. And now you've got two little pins sticking out like that. And it's together. And at this point, you want to make sure that you don't have any gaps or none of the pieces are just sitting cockeyed or weird, because it's going to be a pain in the ass to kind of fix that later down the road. So if any of those fit weird, I would take it off, shave off some on whatever pieces that need work, and then double check again. So there's no gaps on this one. Everything fits pretty tight, comes apart, comes back together. Now, at this point, I've already shaped the profile. So I've kind of put it together. I looked at the blade, I put some tape on there and drew the profile and ground it out. Now, I've got some layout lines on the front right here. And that's where I get that's how I make my foundation for the, I don't know, the squareness of the blade. So I just, for that part, I've got this like angle thingamajigger. You can get a square. This could work. I wish I had one that was just, you know, flat, but either one works. I just take it, put it at 90, put it right up to the ricasso, and I just mark my pencil lines on every single corner. And then you can use those to grind square your handle. After it's been squared off, so like this face is perpendicular to the blade, now I'm going to draw the center lines. So I've already done that. I just eyeball it. I sight down the blade and all that kind of stuff and just mark where center is there. I look straight down, both directions, mark a point here. Look at it this way, mark a point that way, connect the dots, you know, same thing down here. And then I look at the smallest distance from center. So like this right here, that distance right there was the smallest distance for each corner possible. So since this is the smallest one, I'm just going to take that measurement and extrapolate it for every other corner. So that's what I did. So now I've got my reference lines, center line. I can just grind straight to those outside lines. And if I did a good job grinding the profile faces square, and then I grind up to those new reference lines that I made, this should be a square block. Square meaning like everything is straight and parallel and perpendicular to all the foundation lines of the blade itself. And I think that's it. So once I grind this part, I'll double check my work and then I can just start shaping the handle itself. At this point, I will wrap the blade and I shape the handle on there, because even though it's pretty tight, there's a little bit of wiggle. So if I take off the blade and you can just, like, you can hear it. There's a little bit of wiggle. So I'll shape it as far as I can with the blade on, and then, you know, before I do the final glue up, I will chamfer the edges on the steel spacers, because metal, once you shape everything, when everything else shrinks, you're going to get a very harsh burr at the edge. And these metal spacers tend to get very, very harsh down the road when everything else is done and finished and then things have shifted. So finish the handle as far as I can and then chamfer these edges. Glue it together, do the final touch-ups, and then it should be done. I think that's it. Hopefully that helps. I think the value is just kind of seeing how these are constructed and the order of operations that I explained. So if that wasn't clear, fit the bolster piece, fit the spacer with the bolster on the knife, like that. Super glue these two pieces together, take that assembly off, put in the drill press, drill your 2 holes, put it back on the knife. Well, drill and ream the 2 holes, put it back on the knife, put your block with that assembly, super glue the block to the spacer, take the whole assembly off after it's been glued, break those super glue little tacks at the front bolster, and then use those 2 pilot holes that you already had and drill straight through and then ream into the block itself. And then measure your pins, double check your fit ups, and then go from there. Hopefully that helps. That's just a quick run through of doing a multi-piece handle with alignment pins. You could probably get away without doing alignment pins if you don't have metal spacers. Just prep everything really well, glue it well, rough up your tang or have some sort of mechanical fastening somewhere, and it'll be fine. But definitely, if you have metal spacers, this is highly encouraged. Thanks for watching.